Welcome back to Noir Alley. I'm your host, Eddie Muller. And today is a very special day. It not only marks our first airing of a foreign language film, but I have the privilege of introducing it with a very special guest. Today, Noir Alley gets its own femme fatale. Alicia Malone, it is a privilege to have you here in the Noir Alley lair. I feel like you've come here to ask me to find someone for you,
Yeah.
or maybe kill someone for you.
I feel like I should have a handkerchief and be dabbing my eyes as I tell the story and you give me a drink. But thank you, Eddie. You know, being here is right up my alley.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed. Well, I'm glad we were able to pull this together. Now, the film that we are introducing today, Elevator to the Gallows, was mutually decided upon. I had asked you if you wanted to come on and do the show, and then we discussed titles that we could present, and we both thought this was the perfect one. Now, why to you is this like a good example of noir, foreign noir?
Because as you have explained to me before, the difference between foreign film noir and American film noir is that often in foreign film noir, not a lot happens. Here you do get quite a bit of plot, but it is very simple at the same time, and everything is happening underneath the surface. So for me, it's all about the emotions. It's got a strong love story to it. It's got a really compelling female character, and where it goes is so surprising. I think it's just a great example of film noir in that it takes what could be a very simple premise and makes it about something darker and something more. Also speaks a lot about society at the time, modern Paris at the time, war veterans, and that kind of world weariness that they had. Yeah,
you hit it right on the head. Jean Moreau, who is the star of this film, who is really one of the great femme fatales, and finally she gets to wear it because she's French, right?
Yeah.
So the term fits her better than most. But it's a fascinating performance because she doesn't really do anything.
Yes.
She's the most passive femme fatale ever, but she's extraordinary in this movie.
She is. I love that the U.S. title, when it was released in 1961 here in the U.S., was Frantic, because I think that describes her character. For a lot of the story, you see her walking through the streets of Paris, not knowing what to do with herself. Very little dialogue. The thing that always compels me about Jean Moreau is how much plays on her face. It's bizarre to think that before this movie, people didn't think she was photogenic. And Louis Malle himself said he loved the way she could turn from beautiful to ugly almost in an instant, and you see how much she does just with her face and her walk.
Yes,
I mean,
and the walk.
Jean Moreau became the icon of the French New Wave, and she had such a perfect mixture of intelligence and sex appeal. And I love Patti Smith said about her, she's like a barbed wire fence on fire. I love that description.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. And she had made a lot of movies before this, and it's interesting that so many people, including some esteemed critics, mistakenly said this was her first film.
Yeah, the film that put her on the map, surely, but she'd done 7 or 8 different films, a lot of B pictures.
Yes, yes, but something about the way Henri Decaix, the cinematographer, photographs her walking through Paris with the natural light of the cafes and the bistros. You're absolutely right. This is one of the great faces in cinema. For me, the reason I was very eager to show this film is because of its score. This is considered now to be one of the great music scores in movies, and it came about almost entirely by accident. Miles Davis was not yet Miles Davis. He wasn't Miles yet, you know, but he had his first quintet had broken up, and he was now going on a tour of Europe, and this producer, Marcel Romano, suggested to Louis Malle that, you know, there might be something to work with here. And originally what was going to happen was that this fellow who was working with Louis Malle wanted to make a short documentary film about Miles Davis at work, and then suggested, why don't you just have him do the whole score? And legend has it that it was improvised.
Yeah, I heard like over one night, December 1957, it just came out in a flurry.
I love the story. I don't believe the story is true for a minute. I think that Miles watched the film and then started back at his hotel doing some ideas on the piano and riffing on things and coming up with some thematic motifs for the film. And then what makes it seem so improvisational is that he put together a pickup group, right, of 3 French musicians and Kenny Clark, who's a great jazz drummer who was in Paris at that time and kind of anchored this whole thing. But they did actually, it was recorded over the course of one night with the film playing, and these musicians were so good that Miles just kind of led the way, and they just played their riffs, and it is an astounding
It really
score.
is. I love the way it's used and not used. So it's used at the perfect times where the improvisational feel of jazz goes with the chaos of what's happening on screen, and then it goes to silence.
Yeah.
And I love that juxtaposition. It makes the silences feel quite loud.
Absolutely. And in some respects, people, I think, wrongly say, oh, the sound of noir is the saxophone. And it's, to me now, it's Miles' trumpet, especially in this movie. It is the most desolate, forlorn, melancholy sound imaginable, and it is used so beautifully in this film.
It's hard to believe that this was the feature film debut narrative-wise for Louis Malle, who was 24 at the time, and he'd written another script which I think became The Lovers, the film he did after that, when he was handed this book by a friend. And as Roger Nimier, who wrote it with him, the adaptation, said, this book is stupid, and Louis Malle said, but the plot is good.
Well, this is very common in noir films, right? It's like there's a great premise, and the writer can't quite sustain it for novel length. Like, really? This is really nuts. But then it does form a great basis for the film. And if people haven't seen this before, they know it's unusual because there are 2 storylines that happen simultaneously that are connected and end up coming back to intersect at the end of the film. But I don't want to spoil anything in the plot for these people, so let's do this, okay? Here is the feature film directorial debut of Louis Malle from 1958 and starring Jean Moreau. This is Elevator to the Gallows.